The Tumbleweed Inn was a place that once held the promise of simple pleasures and quiet evenings. But tonight it felt like the stage for an unfolding drama. As I walked through its weathered wooden doors, my heart pounded with an uneasy rhythm, each beat echoing my rising anxiety. I spotted Elena seated at a corner table, her posture tense, her eyes darting around as if she was expecting someone, or something. The dim lighting cast shadows that seemed to blur the lines of her face, accentuating the discomfort I felt. I had been piecing together fragments of her behavior over the past few weeks. Unexplained absences, late-night phone calls, a growing distance that left an icy chill between us. Now, all the signs pointed to one glaring conclusion. I forced myself to move with a composed demeanor, every step closer to her table feeling like a step towards an inevitable revelation. My hands were clammy as I adjusted my jacket, my mind racing through the worst-case scenarios. What if my suspicions were right? What if this was the moment everything changed? I could feel the weight of the night bearing down on me, every detail amplified in the quiet hum of the inn's background noise. As I approached, I tried to steady my breath, knowing that tonight I was not just a husband, but a man on the brink of uncovering a painful truth. The stakes felt monumental, and the tension in the air was almost palpable. I was about to confront the person I thought I knew best, and every nerve in my body was screaming for answers. The signs were subtle at first, like ripples on a calm surface that slowly evolved into waves of doubt and confusion. It began with small changes in Elena's routine. Late nights at the office that seemed to stretch endlessly, her once vibrant energy replaced by a weary indifference. I would catch glimpses of her on her phone, her conversations hushed and fragmented, the content always shrouded in secrecy. It was as if a barrier had been erected, separating her from us, her family. Her laughter, which used to fill our home, grew faint, replaced by a cold silence that was only punctuated by the occasional curt response. Our evenings, once filled with shared stories and bedtime rituals with the kids, became an afterthought. The children sensed it too, their cheerful voices growing quieter, their attempts to engage with her met with distracted nods or hurried excuses. I watched as Elena's attention shifted away, her once present affection now an elusive memory. The distance between us grew wider, each day adding to the chasm that seemed insurmountable. Every attempt to connect felt like a futile reach into an abyss where warmth and intimacy once thrived. The more I observed, the more the pieces of this disheartening puzzle began to fit together, forming a picture I dreaded to fully understand. The Tumbleweed Inn, with its dim lighting and rustic charm, suddenly felt like the perfect setting for a confrontation I had dreaded for weeks. As I walked in, the warmth of the bar's ambiance seemed to contrast sharply with the cold resolve I felt inside. My eyes scanned the room, finally landing on Elena at a secluded table with a man who, from his demeanor and the way he leaned in close, was more than just a colleague. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to remain composed, every step towards them measured and deliberate. I slipped into a seat across from them, my presence a sudden and unwelcome intrusion. Elena's face went pale, a flicker of surprise and guilt crossing her features, while her companion's expression shifted to one of discomfort. Protagonist, calmly. "Elena, can we talk?" Her voice faltered, and the man beside her shifted uncomfortably, glancing at me with a mixture of apprehension and defensiveness. I discreetly activated the recorder in my pocket, the tiny device now a crucial tool in unraveling the truth. Elena's gaze darted nervously between me and her companion as I leaned in, my tone steady and controlled. Protagonist. "Do you want to explain what's going on here? I've noticed some changes lately, late nights, secretive phone calls. I think it's time we address them." The tension in the air was almost tangible, and Elena's attempts to compose herself only added to the gravity of the moment. Her lover shifted in his seat, his discomfort palpable as he avoided eye contact. I watched as Elena struggled to maintain her composure, her eyes reflecting a mix of shame and defiance. Elena, hesitant. "This isn't what you think," I continued, maintaining a calm demeanor. Though every word was heavy with unspoken accusation, the recorder captured the wavering edge in Elena's voice, the hushed exchanges, and the faint sounds of a conversation that spoke volumes about the affair. Protagonist. Why don't you tell me what it is then? I'm all ears. Her confession came slowly, with trembling lips and a voice barely above a whisper. The bar's low murmur provided a backdrop to her admission, each word a piercing revelation that cut through the veneer of normalcy. The conversation was tense, punctuated by moments of silence as Elena tried to explain the inexplicable. As the night wore on, I remained focused, my mind meticulously documenting every detail, every inflection in Elena's voice. The evidence was building, and with each confession, the reality of the situation became clearer. The recorder, now a silent witness to the unraveling truth, would serve as the key piece of evidence in the battle that lay ahead. The confrontation, though fraught with emotional intensity, was conducted with a controlled precision that underscored the gravity of the situation and the resolve to see it through to its conclusion. As the dim glow of the Tumbleweed Inn's lights flickered against the shadows of the evening, the weight of the moment settled heavily on my shoulders. Elena's eyes, brimming with a mixture of fear and resignation, met mine with a painful honesty that pierced through the layers of doubt I had been struggling with. Her confession came as a reluctant murmur, each word dragging a sense of finality into the space between us. Elena, tearfully. I didn't want it to come to this. I'm so sorry. I've been seeing someone else. Her voice trembled, barely audible over the low hum of the bar's background chatter. It was as if the air had been sucked out of the room, leaving a suffocating silence in its wake. I felt a cold clarity wash over me as her words sank in. The truth I had feared now laid bare before me. The room seemed to tilt on its axis, the reality of the situation cutting through the numb shock I felt. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to maintain control despite the storm of emotions raging within. Every detail from our recent conversations, every subtle shift in her behavior, suddenly snapped into sharp focus. The betrayal was undeniable, and as Elena's confession continued, a plan began to crystallize in my mind. Protagonist, coldly. How long has this been going on? Elena's gaze dropped, her fingers twisting nervously around her glass. Her answer was a jumble of regrets and apologies, but her admissions only served to clarify the extent of the deceit. Each revelation was a piece of a larger puzzle, and as she spoke, I felt a steely determination solidify within me. I had to act swiftly and decisively. The recording device in my pocket now felt like a lifeline, capturing every admission, every faltering explanation. This evidence would be crucial in the legal battles to come, a tangible manifestation of the betrayal that had shattered our lives. My mind raced through the next steps, each one a carefully calculated move to reclaim control over a situation that had spun out of my grasp. As Elena continued to speak, her remorse evident but her words barely making up for the damage done, I focused on the path forward. The confrontation was far from over, but with the truth in hand, I began to strategize. The plan was clear: gather all evidence, consult with my lawyer, and prepare for the inevitable fallout. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would navigate the tumultuous waters of betrayal with a methodical precision, determined to protect myself and secure a future free from the shadows of deceit. The sterile professional ambiance of the law office felt like a stark contrast to the emotional turbulence I had been enduring. As I stepped into the sleek modern space, the weight of the past weeks pressed heavily upon me. My lawyer, a seasoned attorney with an air of quiet authority, greeted me with a firm handshake and a reassuring nod. I took a seat across from her, my hands clutching a folder containing the evidence I had meticulously gathered. Lawyer professionally. Let's go over what you have. I slid the folder across the polished mahogany desk. The lawyer opened it, her eyes skimming over the recordings and documents, each piece of evidence a testament to the betrayal that had rocked my world. Her expression remained inscrutable, but I could sense her assessment of the situation, serious and meticulous. Protagonist, resolved. I need to know my options. I want to take legal action against Elena and her lover. Lawyer, nodding. Understood. The evidence you've gathered is crucial. It provides a solid foundation for your case. We'll start with the divorce proceedings and address the issues of asset division, alimony, and custody if necessary. Her words were both reassuring and daunting. The process ahead would be complex, involving multiple legal steps and negotiations. I absorbed her advice, my mind racing with the implications of each decision we discussed. Lawyer, thoughtfully. We'll need to file for divorce and present the evidence in court. This will include the recordings, any written communications, and witness testimonies if applicable. We should also prepare for potential counterclaims or defenses from Elena and her lover. The complexity of the legal landscape was becoming clearer, each detail adding to the gravity of the situation. I nodded, absorbing the information, feeling a sense of grim determination. This was not just about the end of a marriage, but a battle for fairness and respect in the aftermath of betrayal. Protagonist, focused. What about the financial implications and property division? Lawyer, confidently. We'll outline all assets and liabilities, ensuring that everything is accounted for. We'll also work on a fair settlement that reflects the circumstances of the case. As we continued discussing the specifics, from filing deadlines to potential court dates, I felt a sense of empowerment. Each strategic move, every legal document prepared, was a step toward reclaiming control and securing my future. The process was daunting, but the clarity of purpose guided me through the labyrinth of legalities and personal turmoil. Leaving the office, I felt a renewed sense of determination. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but with a clear plan and a skilled lawyer at my side, I was ready to confront the complexities of the situation head-on. The next steps were critical, but I felt a cautious optimism, knowing that I was no longer passive in this ordeal but actively shaping the course of my life. As I stepped out of the law office, the weight of the world seemed to shift from my shoulders. The sterile environment of the lawyer's office had given way to the bright, bustling city streets, but the clarity of purpose I felt was as tangible as the cold air against my face. I walked with a renewed sense of determination, each step echoing my resolve to take control of the situation that had once seemed overwhelming and insurmountable. Back at home, the familiar surroundings now felt like the battleground on which I was about to fight for my future. I moved through the house with a strategic calm, my mind brimming with plans and contingencies. The evidence I had gathered, recordings, documents, and notes, was no longer just a collection of painful truths, but a toolkit for reclaiming my life. I meticulously organized everything, setting aside crucial pieces for easy access. Each document was a chapter in a story of betrayal and a key to navigating the legal labyrinth ahead. Protagonist, VO, resolutely. Taking control means more than just making decisions. It's about orchestrating every step with precision, ensuring that every move counts. I drafted a list of immediate actions, finalizing the divorce papers, scheduling a meeting with my lawyer to review our strategy, and preparing for the inevitable emotional confrontations that lay ahead. I focused on what needed to be done, compartmentalizing my emotions to maintain clarity. Each task was a step toward regaining control over my life, a methodical approach to a complex situation. To further assert my control, I began making arrangements for financial protection. I reviewed our assets and liabilities, seeking advice on securing my financial future amid the divorce proceedings. I was determined to ensure that I was not left vulnerable, that the division of property and finances was equitable, and that my rights were protected. Protagonist, VO, determined. This is about more than just ending a marriage. It's about making sure that I emerge from this stronger, with my dignity intact and my future secured. Strategically, I planned the timing of my actions. I set dates for filing documents, scheduled meetings with financial advisors, and prepared for the next stages of legal proceedings. Every decision was calculated, aimed at maintaining control and minimizing surprises. I knew that staying ahead in this process was crucial, and I was committed to handling every detail with the precision of a chess player moving pieces across a board. The sense of empowerment was palpable. As I reviewed my plans and prepared for the coming weeks, I felt a surge of confidence. I was no longer a passive participant in this ordeal, but an active architect of my own path forward. The challenge ahead was daunting, but with each step I took, I felt increasingly in command of my fate, ready to face whatever came next with strategic clarity and unwavering resolve. The days leading up to the confrontation were marked by a meticulous flurry of activity. Every detail was crucial, and I approached the preparation with a methodical precision that left no room for error. My home, once a place of refuge, became a command center for my strategic operations. I had a comprehensive plan, and executing it was paramount. I began by revisiting the evidence I had collected. Each recording, each document was carefully reviewed and organized, ensuring that everything was in its proper place and ready for presentation. The evidence was not just a collection of painful truths, but a critical arsenal in the impending confrontation. I ensured that all materials were accessible and easily presentable, setting aside the most damning pieces for immediate use. Protagonist, VO, determined. Preparation is the key to success. Every piece of evidence must be ready. Every argument must be prepared. This confrontation isn't just a personal reckoning. It's a strategic maneuver. I coordinated closely with my lawyer, finalizing our approach. We discussed the timing of the confrontation, ensuring it would be conducted under conditions that maximized the effectiveness of our presentation. My lawyer's guidance was invaluable, helping to shape our strategy and anticipate potential responses from Elena and her lover. Lawyer, calmly. We need to ensure that the evidence is presented clearly and concisely. We should also be prepared for any counter-arguments or attempts to discredit the evidence. Armed with this advice, I drafted a script for the confrontation, outlining key points and responses to possible scenarios. I practiced my delivery, focusing on maintaining composure and clarity under pressure. The confrontation was as much about strategy as it was about emotion. Every word, every reaction had to be carefully measured. I also prepared for the emotional impact. I knew that seeing Elena and her lover face to face would be a significant psychological challenge. To mitigate this, I scheduled brief periods of reflection and relaxation, ensuring that I approached the confrontation with a clear mind and a steady heart. Protagonist, VO. Emotional preparation is just as important as logistical. I need to stay focused, no matter how difficult the encounter. I organized all necessary documents for legal proceedings, ensuring that everything was filed correctly and that I had copies for every eventuality. This included the divorce petition, custody arrangements, and financial settlements. Every aspect of the legal process was laid out in advance, leaving nothing to chance. The day of the confrontation arrived, and I was ready. My preparations had been exhaustive, but I felt a deep sense of confidence in my ability to handle the situation. As I headed to the location of the meeting, I reviewed the key points one last time, mentally rehearsing my delivery and preparing for any potential twists. The confrontation would be a pivotal moment, and I was determined to face it with the resolve and strategic acumen I had cultivated. This was not just about addressing the betrayal, but about reclaiming control and setting the stage for the next chapter of my life. The evening was cloaked in an unsettling quiet as I approached the meeting location, every step laden with the gravity of the impending confrontation. The familiar setting, once a symbol of domestic tranquility, now seemed fraught with tension and unspoken truths. I arrived early, taking a moment to steady myself before entering. The preparations had been thorough, but the emotional stakes were undeniable. When Elena arrived, her face reflected a mix of apprehension and resignation. I could see her struggle to maintain composure as she sat down, her eyes searching mine for some sign of mercy or understanding. But this was no longer about emotions. It was about asserting control and making decisions that would shape the course of our lives. Protagonist, steadily. Elena, we need to talk about what's been happening. Her eyes fell, her silence speaking volumes. I took a deep breath, then began to lay out the evidence I had meticulously gathered. I presented the recordings, highlighting the moments that captured her betrayal with undeniable clarity. Each piece of evidence was a testament to the reality she could no longer deny, and as I spoke, I watched her face grow pale, her defenses crumbling under the weight of the truth. Elena, tearfully, "I'm so sorry. I didn't want it to come to this." Her apology was a weak and hollow echo against the backdrop of the evidence. I listened with a detached composure, knowing that the time for emotional negotiation was past. This was about making definitive decisions and moving forward. Protagonist, decisively, "I've made my decision. We're proceeding with the divorce." The words felt final, a line drawn in the sand that marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Elena's reaction was a mixture of shock and pleading, but I remained resolute, my mind focused on the next steps. I pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared, the documents reflecting the decisions regarding asset division, custody arrangements, and financial settlements. I reviewed them one last time, ensuring that everything was in order. With a steady hand, I handed them to Elena, the finality of the gesture underscoring the gravity of the situation. Protagonist, with authority, "These are the terms of the divorce. Please review them carefully. I'll be filing these with the court, and you'll receive formal notification shortly." Elena's eyes welled with tears, her hands trembling as she accepted the papers. Her response was a mix of desperation and resignation, but I knew that the decisions made were necessary for moving forward. The emotional impact was profound, but I focused on the practicalities, knowing that this was a crucial step in taking control of my future. As I left the meeting, a sense of somber relief washed over me. The confrontation had been necessary, and the decisions made were a testament to my resolve and strategic planning. The legal papers would be served, and the process of disentangling our lives would begin in earnest. The road ahead was still fraught with challenges, but the clarity of purpose and the steps taken marked the start of a new chapter, one where I would navigate the complexities of divorce and betrayal with the same determined focus that had guided me through this pivotal moment. In the aftermath of the confrontation, the path forward required a strategic approach, meticulously planned and executed to ensure a favorable outcome. The immediate focus was on consolidating the evidence and preparing for the legal proceedings that would define the next chapter of my life. The first order of business was to review and catalog all evidence. I spent hours organizing the recordings, documents, and communications related to the affair. Each piece was carefully labeled and filed, ensuring that everything was easily accessible for presentation in court. The evidence was not just a collection of incriminating details, but a carefully curated narrative that would support my case. I ensured that every document was backed up digitally and securely stored to prevent any potential loss or tampering. Protagonist, VO. Effective preparation means more than just gathering evidence. It's about presenting a clear, organized case that leaves no room for ambiguity. I scheduled meetings with my lawyer to finalize the legal strategy. We discussed every aspect of the case, from the divorce petition to custody arrangements and financial settlements. My lawyer and I meticulously reviewed each document, ensuring that our arguments were robust and our evidence was compelling. We also planned for potential counter-arguments and prepared responses to anticipated defenses from Elena and her legal team. Lawyer, strategically. We need to anticipate their moves, prepare for delays, counterclaims, and attempts to discredit the evidence. Our goal is to present a strong, unassailable case. In parallel with the legal preparations, I took steps to protect my financial interests. I consulted with financial advisors to assess the impact of the divorce on my assets and income. We discussed strategies for safeguarding my financial future, including investments, savings, and potential adjustments to my budget. This included gathering records of all joint assets, debts, and expenses, ensuring that everything was accurately documented and ready for the division process. Protagonist, VO. Securing my financial future means being proactive. It's about planning for every eventuality and protecting my assets from the uncertainties of the divorce. I also made preparations for potential emotional and logistical challenges. I arranged for counseling sessions to support my mental health and began considering new living arrangements if necessary. I knew that the divorce process would be demanding, both emotionally and practically, and I wanted to ensure that I was prepared for any eventuality. Finally, I coordinated with my lawyer to set the timeline for filing the legal papers and initiating the proceedings. We planned the sequence of actions to ensure that everything was executed smoothly and efficiently. I knew that timing was critical, and every step had to be carefully orchestrated to maintain momentum and avoid unnecessary delays. Protagonist, VO. Strategic action isn't just about the big decisions, it's about the small, deliberate steps that build toward a successful outcome. With everything in place, I felt a renewed sense of control. The strategic actions I had taken were not just about navigating the legal complexities, but about reclaiming my life and securing my future. The process ahead would be challenging, but with a clear plan and a steadfast approach, I was prepared to face whatever came next, knowing that I had done everything possible to handle the situation effectively and with purpose. The day had arrived, the culmination of weeks of meticulous planning and emotional turmoil. I stood outside the door of our home, feeling the weight of the moment press heavily upon me. The house, once a symbol of shared dreams and trust, now felt like a stage for the final act of a tragic drama. Inside, Elena was oblivious to the storm about to unfold. I took a deep breath and entered, the familiar sights and sounds of our home now carrying a heavy undercurrent of tension. Elena looked up from where she was sitting, her face lighting up momentarily before a shadow of uncertainty crossed her features. I knew that the revelation I was about to make would shatter the fragile veneer of normalcy we had maintained. Protagonist, calmly but firmly. Elena, we need to talk. Her expression shifted from confusion to apprehension as she sensed the gravity in my tone. I motioned for her to sit down, and with a steady hand, I pulled out the carefully organized folder of evidence. The documents, recordings, and photos were all there, each piece a testament to the betrayal that had unfolded behind closed doors. Elena, nervously. What's this about? Without answering immediately, I began to lay out the evidence. The first recording played, capturing Elena's voice in intimate conversation with her lover. I watched as her face went from disbelief to stark realization, her hands gripping the edge of the table as if trying to steady herself. Each piece of evidence was like a piece of a puzzle falling into place, revealing the full picture of deceit. Protagonist, somberly. I have all the proof I need. The affair you've been having, the lies you've told, it's all here. Elena's reaction was a mixture of shock and guilt. Tears welled up in her eyes as she processed the full impact of what I was showing her. Her defenses crumbled, and she began to speak, her words tumbling out in a stream of regret and pleading. Elena, tearfully. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I didn't know how to fix it. I should have told you. Her apology, though heartfelt, felt hollow against the backdrop of the evidence. I remained calm, my resolve unwavering. The emotional weight of the moment was intense, but I focused on the practicalities of the situation. Protagonist, decisively. Elena, this is beyond repair. The trust is gone, and I can't continue like this. I've already taken steps to file for divorce. The words hung in the air, final and unyielding. Elena's reaction was a mix of desperation and acceptance. She pleaded for another chance, but I knew that the decision was made. The betrayal had been too profound and the damage irreparable. Elena, sobbing. Please, let's try to work through this. I can't believe this is the end. Protagonist, resolutely. It's too late for that. I've made my decision, and the divorce proceedings are already in motion. I handed her the formal divorce papers, the weight of the documents underscoring the finality of the decision. As she took them, her tears flowed freely, a poignant reminder of the personal cost of the situation. As I left the room, the finality of the confrontation settled over me. The decisions had been made, the evidence revealed, and the path forward was now clear. The process of ending the relationship was just beginning, but with the truth laid bare and the final decisions made, I felt a grim sense of resolution. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was prepared to navigate it with the clarity and strength that had guided me through this difficult ordeal.